The forest had always whispered secrets to her. Beneath the silver wash of moonlight, she stood alone among the pines, listening as if the trees themselves might betray her to the night. Power hummed under her skin, dangerous and restless, begging to be seen. She pressed her trembling hands into the earth, forcing it back, willing the fire inside her to die down. She couldn't let it show, not here, not ever. Among wolves, weakness was mocked, but power was hunted. As a child, she learned that truth in the cruelest way. The day her gift first sparked, her mother's face had gone pale with terror, her father gripping her shoulders and whispering, "Hide it, Leora. Hide it if you want to live." So she did. She dimmed herself, shrinking into the shadows of the pack house, the quiet girl who never shifted first, never fought, never won. She let the others sneer, let them call her weak, because at least their scorn kept their suspicion away. But loneliness festered even in silence. Some nights, when the moon was high and the pack howled together in the clearing, she curled tighter beneath her blankets, biting back the urge to let her true voice rise. She wasn't weak. She wasn't powerless. She was something else entirely, and that was the danger. Still, fate had a way of unraveling even the most carefully woven lies. Tonight, the wind carried change. It swept down from the mountains, sharp and cold, rattling the branches overhead as if heralding the arrival of something. Or someone she could not hide from. Her chest ached, heavy with a truth she had buried for so long. She was not meant to live small. Yet survival demanded shadows. Her gaze lifted to the stars, and a single thought burned like fire in her chest. One day they will see me. One day this cage of silence will shatter. But she had no idea that day would come far sooner than she ever dared to fear. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in bruised purples and golds as the pack gathered in the courtyard. Excitement churned like a current through the crowd. Tonight marked the beginning of negotiations with the neighboring pack, a union that could fortify their strength for decades. Leora stood near the back, keeping to the shadows as always, watching the torches flare along the path. And then he came, the Alpha of Blackthorn. He moved like the night itself had taken the shape of a man. Broad, shouldered, tall, every step a silent declaration of power. His presence swallowed the air, commanding obedience without a word. The murmurs of her packmates fell away, replaced by something sharper, awe, fear, reverence. Her heart stuttered. His scent reached her before his eyes did, crisp cedar and storm, washed earth. It curled through her senses like a tether she hadn't asked for, pulling, binding, demanding. She gripped her skirt until her knuckles whitened, trying to still the tremor in her chest. Then his gaze found her. It was only a glance across the courtyard, but it burned. The Alpha's eyes, dark, merciless, caught hers as if he had been searching for them all along. And in that instant she felt it, the sharp tug in her core, the unmistakable spark of recognition. Her breath hitched. No, it can't be. She tore her eyes away, pulse hammering, desperate to smother the warmth unfurling inside her. A mate bond, if that's what this was, would destroy her. To be tied to an alpha of his power meant exposure. And exposure meant death. Still, the weight of his stare lingered, prying into her, stripping away the mask she'd worn her whole life. "Did you see that?" Someone whispered nearby. He looked straight at her. Her cheeks burned, but she forced herself to stillness, head bowed. Invisible, harmless, the Alpha stepped forward, his deep voice rolling through the courtyard. "Thank you for your welcome. Tonight, our packs stand on the edge of something greater." Applause followed, but Leora barely heard it. Her skin still tingled where his gaze had branded her. She prayed he would forget her face in the sea of wolves before him. But in her bones, she already knew he wouldn't. The Alpha of Blackthorn had seen her. And worse, he had seen through her. The courtyard was alive with music and laughter, the scent of roasted meat and spiced wine clinging to the autumn air. Wolves mingled in their finery, showing off strength, charm, and grace, but Leora stood at the edge of it all, praying to remain unseen. The Alpha of Blackthorn had other plans. His presence was magnetic, every word he spoke drawing the pack closer, every gesture watched with reverence. Yet his gaze drifted again and again, cutting across the crowd until it found her, always her. By the time the ceremonial circle was formed, her nerves were frayed. Torches blazed, illuminating faces eager for spectacle. Tradition dictated that visiting alphas acknowledge the unmated, to test the bond of fate. Leora's stomach dropped as his slow, deliberate steps brought him closer. Her pulse thundered. Every instinct screamed run, but her feet betrayed her, rooted in place. He stopped before her. The crowd hushed. "What's your name?" His voice was low, but it carried commanding silence. "Leora," she whispered. Her throat felt tight, the syllables barely escaping. Something flickered in his eyes, sharp as lightning. But then, as quickly as it came, it vanished. His lip curled in something that looked dangerously like disdain. He turned, his voice lifting so all could hear. "There is no bond here, no spark, nothing but frailty." Leora froze, the words slicing into her like claws. Around her, whispers began, harsh and eager. She thought he was looking at her. Pathetic, weak little Leora dreaming above her station. Not even an alpha could see worth in her. The alpha's tone hardened, final and brutal. "If there is anything in her, it is weakness disguised. I want nothing to do with it." A roar of laughter swept through the pack. Her face burned as though the torches themselves had branded her. Her chest ached, breath sharp and shallow. But worse than the humiliation was the truth she tasted in his words. He had felt something. She'd seen it in that flicker, that moment before he crushed it beneath his heel. Her hands shook. Beneath her skin, power stirred, hot and restless. The ground at her feet quivered faintly. The torches bent toward her as though reaching, no, not now, not here. She forced her nails into her palms, hard enough to draw blood, fighting to smother the flare. A single slip, and they would know. He would know. The alpha's gaze lingered one moment longer, colder now, as if daring her to contradict him. When she dropped her eyes, he turned away, dismissing her as though she were nothing. The laughter of her pack chased her into the shadows. She stumbled blindly until the torches faded, until only the forest remained. There, alone, she sank to her knees, fighting the sob clawing at her throat. He had seen her, he had felt the truth, and still he had marked her with rejection for all to hear. But rejection wasn't the only thing burning in her chest. Her power pulsed furious, whispering that one day she would no longer be able to hide. The forest swallowed her cries, the ancient pines her only witnesses. Leora pressed her forehead to the cold earth, her fists digging into the soil. The echoes of laughter still rang in her ears, each cruel word searing deeper than claws ever could. But beneath the pain, something else stirred. Her chest throbbed with heat. The pulse of her hidden power beat like a second heart, begging to be unleashed. She clenched her teeth, desperate to contain it, but the more she fought, the more it demanded. A sharp crack split the night. The glass lanterns on the courtyard's edge, far behind her, shattered in unison. Startled cries rose from the pack, faint but unmistakable. Leora's eyes widened. "No, I didn't mean to." Her palms glowed faintly, threads of light winding between her fingers before flickering out. She curled her hands tight, suffocating the glow until darkness claimed them again. Her breaths came fast, ragged, her body trembling with the effort of restraint. If anyone had seen, if he had seen the memory of the alpha's eyes returned dark and unyielding, yet searching in a way that stripped her bare, he had felt it, she was sure of it, that flicker of recognition before he condemned her. He had known there was something more. And it terrified him. Get it together. She whispered hoarsely to herself, dragging her body upright. Her knees ached from the ground, her palms stung with tiny cuts, but she forced her steps back toward the pack house. By the time she slipped inside, most had returned to their revelry, too drunk on wine and triumph to question the shattered lanterns. No one spared her more than a glance, no one but him. The alpha stood near the head table, his posture relaxed but his eyes sharp, tracking her every move. A shiver ran down her spine. She ducked her head, slipping past the crowd, but she felt his gaze linger long after she disappeared up the stairs. Behind her closed chamber door, she let herself breathe. The room was small, its walls thin, but here at least she could pretend she was safe. She pressed her hand to her chest, feeling the thrum beneath her ribs. Her power wasn't fading. If anything, it was growing stronger. Tears stung her eyes, though she fought them back. She had survived this long by being silent, by being invisible, but the alpha's rejection had cracked something inside her, and she feared it was a wound that would never close. Because deep down, no matter how hard she tried to smother it, the truth remained. She wasn't weak. She wasn't powerless, and sooner or later, she would fail to hide it. Outside, the drums of celebration continued, the sound of wolves howling to the moon in drunken joy. But in the dark of her room, Leora sat trembling, her palms burning with light she could no longer deny. The following morning dawned sharp and clear, the scent of pine and frost drifting through the pack house. Leora lingered by the kitchen hearth, pretending to busy herself with chores, hoping the night before had faded into nothing more than whispers and broken glass. But she felt his presence before she saw him. The alpha of Blackthorn entered the room like a shadow given form, his dark gaze sweeping over the space until it landed on her, her breath caught. Every instinct screamed to lower her eyes, to vanish, but his voice stopped her before she could flee. "You," one word, but it pinned her in place. Slowly she turned, Alpha. He studied her with unnerving stillness, as though peeling back layers of skin to find what lay beneath. The silence stretched, thick and heavy, before he finally spoke. "The lanterns, they shattered last night. No wind, no storm. Strange, isn't it?" Her throat tightened. "I wouldn't know." A muscle ticked in his jaw, his eyes narrowing just slightly. He took a step closer, and though his voice remained low, the force in it made the air tremble. "Wouldn't you?" Her pulse thundered. For a moment she swore he could hear it, feel it. The wild, desperate rhythm of a secret on the verge of breaking. She forced her gaze downward, folding her hands in front of her to hide the faint tremor in her fingers. "I'm nothing," she whispered, just weak. A harsh sound escaped him, something between a laugh and a growl. "Weak," he repeated, but his tone dripped with disbelief. His eyes roved over her face, searching for the lie he already suspected. The weight of his scrutiny pressed against her until she could hardly breathe. When he finally turned away, she felt both relief and dread. His voice, low and edged with warning, lingered as he strode from the room. "You can hide from them, but not from me." Her knees nearly buckled. She gripped the edge of the hearth, her heart racing, the echo of his words burning in her mind. He didn't believe her lies. He was watching her now, waiting for her to slip. And she knew, sooner or later, she would. Outside, a wolf howled, long and mournful. The sound sent a shiver down her spine. Fate had shifted, and there was no turning back. Days passed, but the Alpha's presence clung to Leora like a shadow she couldn't outrun. Everywhere she turned, training grounds, courtyard, even the quiet edges of the forest, his gaze found her, not openly hostile, not kind either, just watchful, relentless. The rejection should have severed whatever fragile thread bound them, yet it only tangled tighter. That morning, she was carrying water from the well when two young wolves brushed past her, their voices sharp with mockery. "Careful, weakling." One sneered, knocking into her shoulder so the bucket sloshed. "She's probably hoping the Alpha will rescue her." The other added with a laugh. Her cheeks burned, but she bit back a reply. Silence was her shield. She had worn it for years. But then a growl cut through the air. Low, dangerous, the Alpha stood nearby, arms folded, his eyes flashing like stormlight. The laughter of the two wolves faltered under his gaze. "Do you have so much time to waste that you choose to mock what you don't understand?" His voice was velvet wrapped around steel. They bowed quickly, murmuring apologies before fleeing, tails tucked. Leora's breath hitched. Heat flared in her chest, not gratitude, not exactly. Something sharper, something dangerous. She dared a glance at him, but his eyes caught hers, holding them prisoner. "You let them speak to you that way," he said, stepping closer. "Why?" She gripped the handle of the bucket, her knuckles pale. "Because it's easier. If they see me as nothing, they won't look deeper." His jaw tightened, his gaze searing. For a heartbeat, he looked ready to argue. Then, softer, almost reluctant, "You are not nothing." The words stole the air from her lungs. Before she could reply, he turned sharply, striding away, but the damage was done. His voice lingered, curling through her thoughts like fire. That night, the pull between them grew unbearable. She slipped into the forest for air, needing distance, but he found her there too, leaning against an oak as though he'd been waiting. "You avoid me," he said quietly. Her pulse stumbled, because you made it clear what I am to you. He stepped closer, slow and deliberate, until the scent of cedar and storm surrounded her. I said what I had to, but every time you walk away it feels like loss. Her breath caught. The bond thrummed between them, undeniable now, a living thing that sparked in the space where their bodies nearly touched. His hand lifted, hesitated, then brushed against her arm. Just a whisper of contact, yet it burned. Her lips parted, words tangled with desire and fear. The world narrowed to him. To the heat of his skin, the hunger in his eyes. Their breaths mingled, and for a suspended heartbeat, she thought he would kiss her. But then he pulled back with a snarl, fists clenched at his sides. You're dangerous, he growled, voice rough. I don't know to me, or to yourself. And with that, he vanished into the trees, leaving her trembling, her lips aching with the ghost of a kiss that never came. The forest still hummed with the echo of his words. You're dangerous. Leora replayed them again and again, each one cutting deeper than the last. But there was no time to dwell. That night, the air shifted. The wolves of the pack stirred uneasily, ears pricking, hackles rising. An unfamiliar scent rode the wind. Feral, sharp, tainted with blood, rogues, the warning howl split the night. Chaos erupted. Leora ran toward the sound without thinking, her instincts faster than her fear. Wolves poured into the clearing, snarling, colliding with dark shapes. The clash of teeth and claws sent shockwaves through the night. And then she saw him, the alpha. He fought like fire incarnate, every movement precise, lethal. But even he was outnumbered. One rogue, larger than the rest, lunged from the shadows, aiming straight for his unguarded side. Something inside Leora snapped. No, the cry ripped from her throat, carrying power she had sworn never to use. The air pulsed. For a moment the battle froze, like the forest itself held its breath. Then it happened. The rogue wolf was flung back, as though struck by an invisible force, slamming into a tree with a sickening crack. Leora's palms burned, glowing faintly, silver light spilling through her skin. Gasps echoed around her. Wolves faltered mid. Fight turning toward her. The alpha's head whipped around. His eyes locked onto her glowing hands. Leora staggered back, horrified. She clenched her fists, willing the light to fade. But it only dimmed slowly, reluctantly, as if her secret didn't want to be buried again. The rogues fled into the night, sensing the shift, unwilling to face the strange power that now blazed in the clearing. Silence followed, broken only by the ragged breathing of the pack. Every gaze fixed on her, accusing, afraid. The alpha stepped forward, chest heaving, blood streaking his jaw. What did you just do? Her heart thundered. She wanted to lie, to shrink, to vanish into the forest and never return. But the truth hung heavy between them, undeniable. Her voice trembled. I never wanted you to see this. He closed the distance, his shadow swallowing hers. His eyes weren't angry, they were something worse. Piercing, demanding, hungry for the truth. You've been hiding, he said low, voice rough as gravel, from me, from all of us. Tears pricked her eyes. If they knew what I was, they would have killed me. Maybe they still will. A ripple of unease passed through the pack behind him. Whispers, fear. The alpha growled softly, not at her, but at them. He turned, his gaze sweeping the wolves. Not one of you touches her. Do you hear me? His voice was thunder, final, unyielding. The pack lowered their heads, though uncertainty lingered in their eyes. Leora's breath shook. She should have felt relief. Instead, the bond between her and the alpha pulled tighter, heavier. For the first time, her secret was not just hers anymore, and that made her more vulnerable than ever. The forest was heavy with night, mist curling between the trees like fingers reaching for the unwary. Leora stayed close to the pack house, every instinct screaming to remain hidden. Her powers had been exposed, and though the alpha had demanded protection, the weight of suspicion had already begun to settle like a dark cloud over her. She should have felt relief that he stood by her, but there was something in the air she couldn't ignore. Whispers that slipped into the corridors, hushed voices behind closed doors. They're saying she's a threat. One packmate murmured as she passed the training yard, eyes darting nervously. That she'll bring ruin to all of us. Leora's heart twisted. No, that's not true. But as she crept closer to the edge of the woods, she heard something she could not unhear. From the shadows of the council chamber, the voice of someone she had trusted close to the Alpha hissed into a communicator. She cannot be allowed to remain. The Alpha may be blind, but the council will see the danger. She will betray him. Mark my words. Betrayal. A cold hand seemed to clutch at her chest. Her body trembled, and for a moment the forest spun around her. The Alpha, he had been watching her, protecting her, and yet, even he could be deceived. Even he could doubt her. The words slithered into her mind, and she realized the terrifying truth. The pack could turn against her. Anyone could, and the Alpha might be powerless to stop it if the council believed the lies. From the shadows, she glimpsed him, leaning against a tree, arms crossed, eyes narrowed. His lips moved as though he were speaking, but the words were lost in the wind. Still, she could feel the tension radiating off him. He sensed it. He felt the same threat that now tightened its grip on her chest. She wanted to run. She wanted to scream. She wanted to vanish into the night and never show her face again. But she couldn't, not now, because she knew deep down that no matter how much she wanted to hide, the Alpha had already marked her in ways she couldn't undo. And if the council succeeded in turning him against her, she would have no allies left. A twig snapped behind her, and she spun, ready to unleash the power she had fought to contain. The night was empty. Or so it seemed. The forest held its breath, and somewhere in the distance the Alpha's growl rolled like distant thunder. She was caught between fear and desire, suspicion and need, trust and betrayal. And for the first time, she realized that surviving the night would take more than hiding. It would take facing the truth, and the Alpha would have to decide if he believed her. The night of the blood moon arrived like a blade across the sky, crimson light spilling over the forest, casting every shadow in sharp relief. Wolves gathered in tense silence, senses straining as the wind carried a warning that prickled the skin like ice. Leora stood at the edge of the clearing, the glow of her hands still faint from the last battle. Her chest hammered with a mixture of fear and anticipation. She had trained for this moment in secret, every stolen hour, every whispered spell, yet nothing could prepare her for the reality of war. Rogues descended like shadows, teeth bared, claws gleaming in the moonlight. Their eyes were wild with hunger and malice. She could smell the intent to kill, to destroy everything she had ever hidden. The Alpha appeared beside her, silent and imposing, the pack forming a protective wall around him. His gaze met hers, dark and feral, and in that moment words were unnecessary. They understood each other. "Stay close," he murmured, voice low but fierce. "I won't hide," she whispered back, her pulse sinking with his. The rogues attacked in a single, violent surge. Leora felt the heat build inside her, the power that had been dormant for so long now roaring like a wildfire. Without thinking, she extended her hands, and energy erupted in arcs of silver and gold, blasting enemies back and into the trees. Wolves stumbled, rogues screamed, and the forest itself seemed to tremble. The Alpha moved like a shadow, every strike precise, every motion lethal. Leora mirrored him, her powers weaving through his attacks, filling the gaps, defending, protecting, destroying. Together, they became a force that the rogues had not anticipated. Two wolves, one bond, unstoppable. But victory came at a cost. A rogue slipped past, sinking claws into her shoulder. Pain flared, searing, but she gritted her teeth, channeling the agony into light. The rogue screamed and flew backward, his body smoking from the force of her power. The Alpha roared, a sound that shook the treetops. He caught her by the waist as she faltered, pressing a hand to her cheek, eyes searching hers. "Are you hurt? I'm fine," she gasped, though the warmth of blood seeped through her tunic. "We have to finish this." With a shared nod, they launched into the final assault. Leora's power blazed hotter, brighter, feeding off the Alpha's strength and their connection. Rogues fell one by one, fleeing into the shadows of the forest. Silence finally settled over the clearing. The blood moon hung overhead, red and unforgiving, illuminating the devastation of battle. Wolves panted, nursing wounds, eyes wide with awe and fear. The Alpha held her close, his hand lingering at her cheek, eyes soft now beneath the fierceness. "You are more than I ever imagined," he said, voice rough with emotion, "and far more than they deserve to see." Leora's heart swelled, her breath mingling with his. She had feared exposure, feared rejection, feared losing herself. But now, standing here, scarred and powerful, she realized the truth. They were unstoppable together, and nothing, not rogue packs, not councils, not fear, could ever take that from them. The clearing was quiet now, bathed in the soft glow of dawn. The blood moon had set, leaving streaks of pink and gold across the horizon. Wolves tended to their wounded, the air thick with smoke and the scent of spent power. Leora leaned against a tree, exhaustion weighing her limbs, but her chest felt lighter than it had in years. The Alpha approached, silent as always, his steps measured but purposeful. His hand hovered near hers, not touching, yet the bond between them thrummed with a force neither could ignore. "You survived," he said quietly, eyes scanning her from head to toe. There was relief there, yes, but also something deeper, more vulnerable than she had ever seen in him. "I did," she whispered, brushing the blood from her shoulder, "because you were there, because we—" Her voice faltered, heart hammering as the unspoken words clawed at her throat. "Because we fought together." He stepped closer, closing the distance that had always felt impossible to bridge. The forest seemed to hold its breath. "Leora," he murmured, his voice low, rough with emotion. "I felt it from the beginning, the bond. I denied it, I rejected it. Out of fear of what you are and what you mean to me." Her pulse quickened. The fear that had haunted her for so long began to melt away, replaced with something fierce and tender all at once. "And now?" she asked softly, searching his face. "Now?" he said, reaching for her hand, wrapping it in his own large, steady grip. "I know I was blind. You're not a threat. You're everything." The words ignited something deep inside her. She had hidden her powers to survive, hidden herself to live, but here, in his presence, none of it mattered. She could shine fully without fear. "I never wanted anyone to see me like this," she admitted. "And yet, you saw me, you saw all of it." He cupped her face gently, thumbs brushing tears she didn't even realize had fallen. "And I would see it 1,000 times over, Leora, because it's yours, all of it, and it belongs with me." The moment hung, suspended between the echo of battle and the soft dawn. Then, finally, he leaned in, lips brushing hers in a kiss that was both fierce and tender, a promise sealed in fire and silver light. Her powers pulsed softly against him, no longer hidden, no longer dangerous. The bond between them flared and settled, stronger than ever, entwining their fates in a way neither could resist. Pulling back just slightly, he whispered against her lips, "You're mine, not out of duty, not out of fear, but because you're the one I was meant to find." Leora smiled through her tears, a laugh trembling with relief and joy. "Then I'm yours," she whispered, heart full, soul alight, "all of me." Around them the pack stirred, watching quietly, sensing the bond that had been forged in fire, blood, and truth. For the first time, Leora felt unafraid, untouchable in the warmth of acceptance, the thrill of love that had been denied for too long. The forest held its breath, then exhaled, the sun climbing higher, casting golden light over two wolves who had finally found their way to each other. Fate had tested them, fear had threatened to destroy them, but in the end, power, love, and trust had won, and she would never hide again.